So in this time, whether we look at the time of fascism or we look at the fictional Animal Farm, what's the heroic action then? So Camus joined the Communist Party. There's a bunch of different heroic actions, some more heroic than others, not just for the, hero is the wrong word in terms of like effectiveness.
Sure.
What's the effective action, I guess is what I want to ask. As a writer, as a thinker, as somebody with a mind, what's the heroic action?
That's a tricky question because a lot of times in the West, heroism is regarded as intertwined with martyrdom, right? So it's
Right.
kind of this idea of like you have to speak to, Camus always talked about justice, let justice be done though the heavens fall. This is a common kind of motto among people with conscience, and that you have to do the right thing, even the consequences might not be what you like. And I think that is a good loose definition of heroism. So if you meet, I'll give you one example of heroism. This was on Twitter, and I really feel bad that I don't remember the guy's name. This was the line to Auschwitz, I believe it was. And, there's the Nazi guards keeping everyone along. And if you were a certain, I think if you were under 12, they killed you, or there was some age limit where some kids were killed or some were not. There was some circumstances. And he asked the mom how old this kid was, and she's like, he's 14. And she's like, no, he's 12. And she's like, no, he's not, he's 14. She goes, he's 12. And she realized what this Nazi was telling her, even in that circumstance, and it ended up saving the kid's life. So I think heroism in this context is defiance and standing true to values of liberalism, humanism, and venerating the sanctity of human life. I think that, and I think it's also important to pick your battles. I don't think if he got on that Nazi over there, got in a bullhorn and said, "Hey, this is the rules," blah 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to help anyone do anything. So I do think people a lot of times attack me for my anarchist views. It's like, oh, would you call the police? Would you use the roads? Would you pay your income taxes? I got an argument with Tim Pool because there was that couple, I think in, what was that, Missouri or Illinois, when they were had their guns and they were being arrested, and they basically took a plea deal, and he said you should have fought. I go, it's a lot easier to say you should fight, but we don't know what circumstance someone is under. And what these totalitarian regimes did very, very well, as you know, is if you were a target and they can't get through to you, that's fine. You have a family. So you can sit there, Lex, and gird your jaw, and you can stand up to all the torture. Cool. What are we going to do about your wife? What about your mom? One thing Stalin did, he made it a law that kids up to 14 and up could get the death penalty for certain crimes. So after that, the rule was from the NKVD, if you were interrogating someone, they would have death warrants for the kid's child on the desk visible. So I'm interrogating you, asking you to to admit to some crime that you're not committed. And those pieces of paper, it's Svetlana, she's got a death warrant. You're gonna admit to any crime you want. So this is something Americans. This is even the case right now in North Korea, which I know you had Yeonmi Park on. It's something I talk about a lot. Let's talk about it instead of the hypothetical, but this is happening right now on Earth. You can look at the map on Google. The great leader Kim Il Sung, the founder of North Korea, said class enemies must be exterminated 3 generations. So when people talk about individualism versus collectivism, Rick Santorum, former senator, says the family is the basic unit of society. Unit. North Korea takes that seriously. The family is punished as a unit. So if someone does something wrong, 3 generations have to pay the price, and you often don't know who it is that got you all in trouble. There's not a trial. This to Western minds is something almost incomprehensible.
It's a lot easier to be brave when it's just your skin. There's
Yeah,
something when it's your child, your loved ones. Every man becomes a coward.
but also, what bravery is there for me to write an essay for The Guardian to say I don't vote? There's no consequences to me. There's no possibility of consequences to me. This is the wonderful thing about living, in a
Yeah.
free country. It would take a lot of courage to be in the Soviet Union and say, I'm not going to vote. And what would that courage accomplish? Very little. So I think heroism, in the sense of kind of the suicidal stuff and taking a stance with no consequences, is a bit overrated.
There is some aspect, like the way I think about heroism is something like you said about the Nazi soldier, which is quietly, privately in your own life, live the virtues that you want the rest of the world to live by.
Yes.
So like without like writing about it is not as heroic as living it quietly.
I'll give you a great example of this. I sometimes give talks on networking, and I tell the kids, if you know someone's in town and it's their birthday with nothing to do, take them out. And I say, I do this for selfish reasons. And everyone laughs. And I go, think about it this way: the guy who takes people out for their birthday is awesome. That could be you. Like, you have that capacity to be that person, and you're making that day feel special. They're going to remember for a long time. What's the cost? Dinner, $30, $25. So it's very disturbing to me how often people have opportunities to slightly move the needle and make things a bit better at almost no cost, and they just literally don't think in those terms. And one of the things Camus talked about, he's often described as a existentialist, which he did not like that term. He regarded himself as an absurdist, is the idea that we're basically blank canvases. And this isn't something that is dangerous. This is an enormous opportunity. And you have the ability to become the kind of man or woman that you admire and want to be. You don't have to be, I don't know, George Washington or one of these great heroes of all time. But everyone out there has the capacity, to be a hero to their kids, or to be a hero to maybe there's nursing homes and there's old people who are lonely. I think that you take in a dog that's on its last legs. These are little things. Terry Shepard does that a lot. I regard him as a hero. These are not Terry Shepard. I'm blanking his name. These are things that people do that aren't heroic in the sense of Superman, but that I find admirable extremely, and I think are very underrated because these people aren't championed.
Is this some kind of weird, passive aggressive, indirect way for you to tell me that I should take you out for your birthday on Monday? Is that why you gave that whole speech?
That wasn't it at all.
That was a joke, Michael.
No, it was a failed joke.
Nevertheless,
There was no punchline.
without failure, we would not have triumph.